Hey everyone, this is Dr. Infinity, and this is going to be a little different, but this week I'm going to be talking about In Cold Blood by Truman Capote and the 2005 movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Capote. As you can tell by the title and thumbnail, I'm not a fan of either In Cold Blood, the movie, or Truman Capote as a person, and we're going to get into that. This video is going to have spoilers for all of those things, so if you don't know, In Cold Blood isn't really a recommendation for me, neither is Capote, but I will have a link because you can actually go on Tubitv and watch Capote for free. So if you just want to check it out for free before watching this video, you can. In Cold Blood, this is a book about, I think everyone kind of knows, but if you don't, this is about the Clutter murders, which happened in Holcomb, Kansas on November 15th, 1959. The Clutter family, consisting of Herb, Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon, were all murdered. And this was just kind of a shocking event. And Truman Capote, he read about it, so he went out there to investigate and write on it. It was supposed to be like an article, but it ended up becoming a book. The murders were committed by two men, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok. They were on the run for about six weeks after the murders. It's debated if Perry Smith executed all four members of the family or if Dick killed two and he killed the other two. It doesn't really matter. They were both there, but they were arrested. There was a trial, and then they were later executed. While the trial was going on, Capote was interviewing Perry and Dick and getting their life story and just doing a lot of background research about the town, the people, and how it's all affected everyone. So that's kind of just the intro. But the reason why I really don't like In Cold Blood or Capote or just Truman as a person, and I'll get into this more later on. In Cold Blood is still labeled as a nonfiction novel. That is not true. There are scenes in the book that Capote made up wholesale. They're completely fabricated. That really bothered me. The book's final scene is completely fake. Alvin Dewey, who was a member of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, he said that this absolutely did not happen, and there are a few other people that have come up and said that they've been misquoted, they've been, portrayed wrongly, and that Capote is kind of shook around a few other scenes. And there are a few other little things in the book that are just convenient. They are convenient. It's I've come across this when I've read some autobiographies where I'm like, yes, coincidences happen, but sometimes it's just so convenient for the narrative. It's so ideal. Or I'm like, I really doubt it happened exactly as you said it. So it just kind of soured me on the entire book, and it does bother me that it's still labeled as a nonfiction novel when it's clearly fiction. I guess you could do quote unquote based on true events, but you can't call it nonfiction. That's total BS. But I really dislike Capote for that. And I'll get into kind of his later life and some other stuff, because this isn't the first time. This isn't the only time that he misquotes people or he makes something up. It's really lowered my opinion of him, and he's a journalist and all that. But In Cold Blood as well just has a lot of what I guess I would just call it purple prose, or it's just overly detailed and just overly written, where we'll just have paragraph and paragraph of descriptions, and it's I don't really care. He also adds in thoughts to the characters, which we can't really know what they're thinking at the time, but somehow he knows. And it's just it cannot be labeled nonfiction. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about the book In Cold Blood, and then afterwards I'm going to talk about Capote, and then I'm going to get into some of this later life stuff that Capote got into and some other discrepancies with those. And I'm going to bring up a few different articles that I found that delved into him a bit more. Just starting with the book, we have the Clutter family murder, and this is just so fucking very just horrific, and just its execution and everything, where the family members are tied up and they're left in different rooms of the house, and then they're executed one by one. So the first one to be killed is Herb, and then his son Kenyon, who is 15 years old, is then executed, and then they go upstairs, and then they shoot Nancy, who's 16, and then finally Bonnie, the mother. And while all this is happening, you have to listen to the sounds of your family members being killed as you're helpless. You're helpless to do anything, and you just have to listen to it. And Capote tries to get these men off of the death penalty. And I hate him for that. Just this New York, holier than thou, blah, 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 morality shit. We're so above the death penalty, But if Perry Smith and Dick Hickok went to New York and just executed a bunch of Truman Capote's friends, I'm sure he would have called for their execution. You know what I mean? It's just this, you can kind of take this, no, we're so above it, opinion when it's not directly affecting you, right? I hate it. I really hate it. We get into we get into the heads of our two killers, Perry, and it seems like Perry had a rough life. He had an abusive childhood. Like, there's a lot of bad shit there. And, I would have said, if I ever, met Perry, I'm like, you know what? I'm really sorry about your childhood. I'm really sorry about the abuse and everything. But that does not cancel out you later on executing 4 people. I just would have been like, sorry, and then let him into the gallows to be hanged, because it's not an excuse. And you definitely get a very heavy bias from Capote. Some people have said that Capote was in love with Perry. I don't know if that's true. I think just about everyone knows that Capote was a homosexual, but I don't know if it was necessarily a love, maybe an infatuation, because how Perry is written, it's very kind of gentle. It's very much Perry's really a nice guy. This was a bad time, bad place kind of thing for Perry. He's really not like this. Dick does not get that treatment. While it might not be love or something, there's a connection. I think Capote felt that they grew up in similar circumstances with being abandoned by parents and just kind of being neglected, not appreciated by their parents. So he feels a connection. And I will say this for Capote, if you put me in a room with a killer, and I just had to listen to them talk over and over, day after day after day, and they told me all about their life, and just personal, intimate stuff, I would probably feel a connection to them too. I could probably start to understand and empathize with them. I guess I might call it a little dose of Stockholm Syndrome, but at the end of the day, putting some distance between you and that person, I would go wow, they're still a fucking monster. So, back to the book. We have Perry, who, he and Dick, they met in prison, and Perry just went on and on about how he had killed a man before, a black man in Las Vegas. This was a lie, and apparently there was some research done, and it really looks like he didn't kill anyone. He didn't kill anyone in Las Vegas, so that's good, at least. Not that he's still not a murderer, not that he still didn't kill 4 people, but he didn't kill, another man, right? Perry is definitely written to be, this sensitive little, kind of wallflower guy, and this is why Capote likes him so much. It's I don't know, it just seems kind of LA and New York people, if if a guy commits, horrible, horrible crimes, but, well, he's an artist at heart, he has a sensitive soul, then it's well, they're not that bad, right? And it's bullshit. There's a part here where Capote touches on Dick being a pedophile who has raped a few children, 8 or 9 children, and so this is something that I was doing a little research online for this video, and this isn't something that I found online about Dick being a pedophile. It's mentioned in the book, In Cold Blood, but it's not mentioned anywhere else. And I've saw some people claim that Capote made this up to make Dick look like very much a monster, obviously, because he's a pedophile, and to just, in comparison, Perry looks very, very good in comparison, and people have said that maybe Capote made this up, and I'm like, well, Capote did completely fabricate scenes, and then he had the audacity to go, on television and everywhere and just promote the book as a nonfiction novel, so maybe it is true, because, Dick's dead. He can't exactly argue against these claims, right? He can't argue against it because he's been executed at this point. So I don't know. And, oh my God, I hate that so much, because it's you really muddled the water. It's not that, even if this was false and he didn't hurt any children, I would still want him killed for the Clutters, I would still want him executed for that, but I think a lot worse of him, obviously, because of the pedophilia stuff, which may or may not be true. We touch on a little bit later on where Perry and Dick, they are hitchhiking and they end up getting a ride from this man and they're like plotting to kill him. So you know what I mean? It's not just like Perry was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, no. Capote gets in his head and Perry is very much debating just killing this guy with a rock in the car. So it's something that Perry can just draw up from himself. It's not a one-time occurrence for him. Like, I think most people could probably do like murder or manslaughter or whatever under extreme circumstances, but Perry can just kind of conjure it within himself. But Perry is very much a woe is me, and if I had a childhood like that, I probably would be a woe is me kind of guy. But I really wish that he could feel bad about the Clutters and what he did to them and how their lives were cut short. Like, he wants people to feel bad about him and his childhood because his dad didn't appreciate that he was sensitive, right? You know what I mean? He can have like certain amounts of empathy for certain things, but he can't like apply it to his victims. It's very odd. But maybe that's just being like a I don't even know. I'm probably using that word wrong, but just having the capacity to kill like that. Because Capote even draws us to Perry's so sweet. He has like when he's in jail, like during the trial, he has like a little squirrel that he calls Big Red, I want to say. And he like feeds it and he plays with it. And it's like, can this guy really be a killer? It's like, yes, he can. He just doesn't like torture animals, I guess. But there's definitely favoritism towards Perry and not Dick. And the book is just dripping with that, So it just feels very, very biased, right? So it's like you kind of it's just another thing to really call everything into question. And the spotlight is focused on Perry, on his harsh upbringing and childhood, while in comparison, Dick seems to be just kind of like a common criminal, just kind of like a thug, not very bright. He'll pass bad checks and stuff like that, but he won't. Yeah, he's like a plotter, but not really like a heavy hitter type of guy. And that's just kind of the book. We cover up until their execution at the very end, when Perry and Dick are on death row. Capote writes about a lot of other people that are on death row, just other inmates, which really have nothing to do with Perry and Dick. And I think he's just doing this to manipulate the reader into sympathizing more with Perry, because the other people on death row are really fucked up and very evil, and they just seem more malicious than like Perry, because he's trying to portray Perry throughout the entire book as wrong place, wrong time. His life could have been so different if just like one little thing went right, but nothing ever goes right for him. You know what I mean? So it's extremely manipulative. That's how I feel. There's definitely like details in some care for the family, for the Clutters, because we have Kenyon, who's 15 years old. We have Nancy, who's 16 years old. They're just so young. But the sympathy ultimately isn't placed on the family. The sympathy is ultimately placed on Perry. And this is just kind of evil in a way. I want to say, it's just like, Jesus Christ. I don't know what it is with sympathizing more with like the killer than the victims, or, you just kind of brush the victims aside, and it's like, I don't know, it's just fucking disgusting. But I hated that. Again, I feel like the book is just overly detailed. You get to hear about everyone and everything, every little piece of gossip that has jack all to do with the book. And it's brevity incarnate, right? The book is brevity. That's one word to describe the book. It's overwritten, and ultimately, just knowing that several scenes are made up, like the book's final scene with Alvin Dewey at the cemetery, completely fake. So there's that. There's also the one woman, the sheriff's wife, that says, because in Cold Blood, it says that she and Perry were very close, but she ended up saying that she spent very little time with Perry and didn't really talk to him. So that's just another thing that Capote has done. There's this There's that. And yeah, just a few other people that have said that they were misquoted or etc. Because Capote did not like use a tape recorder. He said he had like 94, 95% like perfect memory for just memorization. And he trained himself, but it's very convenient that you're not recording anything so that, no one can have a record of you lying or saying that you misquoted them, because then it's their word against yours and you're a renowned journalist, right? You know what I mean? It's very convenient. And just other things with Capote. Apparently in real life, he did cry for these men. I'm like, you're literally crying for, like, I don't know if they're technically like mass murderers, but you're really crying for the two killers and not for like the, just working, just decent Kansas family. You don't have tears for them, but you have tears for Perry Smith, and maybe not Dick Hickok, but you have tears for Perry Smith. It's just fucking gross. We'll get into that a little more. So now we're going to talk about the Capote movie, which, again, I'll link below. You can watch it for free if you want. I don't recommend it, but you can watch it for free if you want. So I don't have a lot to say about the Capote movie. There's just one scene which just infuriated me, beyond reason, which was Perry ended up going on a hunger strike for a while. And we have in the movie, I don't know if this is real or not, right? I don't know if this is real or not, because trying to find out that online, I couldn't really get to the bottom of it. But we have Capote coming into jail, and he's feeding Perry with a spoon baby food. Fuck off, Truman. I don't know if that's real, but it's real in the movie, right? It's real in the movie. It's fuck off for that shit. God damn, he's not a sensitive little fucking flower. He's a fucking killer. Holy shit. I hate him. Hate him. I like some of the shots in the movie. I'll post those. Some of them are nice. But again, it's entire family is killed. You have to, I really want people to imagine that you have to listen to the sounds of your family being killed one by one, and you can't help them. You can't do anything. You have to listen to it, and you know that they're coming for you next. That is torture. That is torture beyond reason. You know what I mean? These men don't deserve life in prison. They're fucking lucky that, as much as people bitch about the prison system in the United States, there are a lot of countries with much worse accommodations for them, and the fact that we just didn't torture these people. They should be fucking lucky. We had a scene with Capote visiting Perry in his cell. I don't want the world to see you as a monster. I do. I do, Truman. I want the world to see Perry Smith as a monster. He is a monster. And yeah, we get into Truman being like a little sneak. He won't tell Perry what the title is. And he says like, oh, he hasn't written very much because he doesn't want him to read it. Capote crying for them at their last meeting. And it's like, oh, yeah, just don't like this very much. And the last scene is him clutching Perry's book. And it's just pathetic. It's just like lip service, like barely lip service is done for the family. And doesn't it say a lot about Capote that he doesn't empathize too much with the family? He latches and attaches himself to Perry Smith, the killer, the outsider, the loner. Doesn't that say a lot about him as a person? I think it's just kind of this awful thing that happens where when crimes are so horrific or they're so commented upon that, the main focus is on the killer, it's on the perpetrator and not the victims. In more recent events like the Waukesha Christmas parade attack, where 6 people were killed and a lot more people were injured, and some of them were children, but like I couldn't tell you the names of any of the victims. I couldn't tell you any of their names, but I know who Daryl Brooks is. I know who Daryl Brooks is. I don't know the victims, and that's kind of just like a terrible thing. Or like the Nashville shooter, the one transgender shooter that went into that Christian school and I think shot 5 or 6 kids. It was something like that. And the focus isn't really on the victims. It's more on the killer. Not that that manifesto is ever going to be released, which is bullshit, but it's probably never going to be fucking released. But I just hate that. You would honestly think of how like the media portrayed that some Christian went into some like transgender school and shot a bunch of transgender kids. You would think that's what fucking happened, right? With just how the media responded to that. There's that, and it's just I just hate it. You know what I mean? Like I just hate it. You have this guy Truman Capote who reads about this horrible murder of these decent people in Kansas, and his empathy is ultimately with the fucking killers, right? And he gets the book, which is fabricated, but that's fine. That still gets to live on. And he gets, there's movies and all this shit, and all these fucking people just praise it for this thing that it is, when it's disgusting. It's subversive. Are we ever going to get like a statue to Gary Plosh? If you don't know, his son Jody was kidnapped and raped by his karate instructor. And then Gary knew that the man was being brought through the airport, so he went there with a gun, and he shot and killed this guy Jeff as he was being walked through, and he ended up getting a suspended sentence for it. The judge ruled that sending him to prison wouldn't help anyone, and there's no risk of him committing another crime. And that's good, but does Hollywood love this guy? Does Hollywood want to do a movie about Gary? And that, should there be a little fucking statue to him because he killed a fucking pedophile? Because, like, the people on the sexual offender registry, they are multiple offenders, typically. They don't fucking change in jail. You just have to fucking kill these people. Because they don't change. They get out, and then they commit it again, and they hurt another person. Or they hurt multiple people before they're back in jail. Just fucking shoot them. And I don't believe in life imprisonment just because we, the working class people, are going to have to pay for these animals to live and to feed them and all of it. And I think that's horseshit. There's another example I had of this German woman, Marianne Bachmeier, who she had an abusive childhood. She had suffered through some stuff in her life and didn't have an easy life. She ended up giving up 2 of her earlier children for adoption, but she had this daughter named Anna. When Anna was 7 years old, she was abducted by this guy, Klaus Grabowski, who ended up raping and killing her. And this guy had been a convicted sex offender that had abused 2 girls previously, perhaps more. And in 1976, he submitted to chemical castration, but I guess it didn't work. Or like, I think it does something to their libido. I always thought chemical castration meant they were like burning off some stuff down there, like maybe his testicles or something, but I don't know. Because apparently he had a fiance at the time who ended up reporting him to the police, so I guess he was able to get an erection still, or I don't know. 1981, Marion snuck a gun into court and ended up shooting Klaus in the back and killing him. She had to serve 3 years in prison for it, which was bullshit. And I don't think, like, the perfect mother, she doesn't seem like she was, but she still, fought for her child, right? She still fought for Anna at the end. So it's something, right? She's still like a more debatably like gray figure, or like good ultimately. Like, I think good, but could have been about her mother maybe, but like there could have been like a movie there or something, but no, they don't want to write about her. They don't want to write about Gary. These type of people, they're not the ones that are promoted in the media. These aren't the heroic figures. They don't get the in cold blood treatment by the world-renowned Truman Capote. You know what I mean? It's just bullshit. I don't know. It's the victims are the ones that matter, not the fucking killers. I don't care that Capote and Perry are like, oh, we're not that different, you and I. It's like, I don't really give a shit. I don't really give a shit about Perry Smith at the end of the day. If he had just been a normal guy and like he had wrote a book about his childhood or something, I'd be like, holy shit, I sympathize. As long as he hadn't harmed anyone, I sympathize. Because unfortunately, a lot of people go through similar trauma to Perry, and they don't go on to just kill a bunch of people. They don't, they deal with it. Maybe we should do more to help people like that with abusive childhoods and stuff like that. Maybe we should, but it's not an excuse for what he did. It's not. Capote went on to do, I'm going to list a few articles that you can look through yourselves. I'm not going to quote all of them, but like there's a few where it's just like Capote, and it's just like it's about his character and like a few of the lies he started with about In Cold Blood and some other stuff. Kind of the heavy hitter one is In Cold Fact by Philip Tompkins, and you can read that one just by going to Esquire. You can make a free account, totally free. And then, yeah, you just search In Cold Fact and it should pop up right away. The article came out on June 1st, 1966, and it's by Philip K. Tompkins. And you can just read through that. It's not terribly long, and that's a really good one. The other articles, they're pretty decent. They're just like little scenes. Capote also did he was doing some crime stuff where he was interviewing prisoners. And there was this one prisoner called Morse who said that Capote embellished a quote he probably had, and he called Capote out on it, and Capote couldn't call Morse a liar because Morse had proof, or there was a recording of it. So if Capote went to fight him on it, they would say just, hey, play the recording, and then that would prove that Capote was lying about the quote. So just, I don't know. I really don't like that. I don't like that a quote-unquote journalist is willing to do shit like that. He made a book called Answered Prayers, which was him just dishing dirt on all of his New York rich friends. And he ended up just losing all of his friends, and I think he just became a drug addict, and he just an alcoholic too, and just had a horrible fucking end of his life, which honestly, if he really feels that Perry wasn't really a bad man, then maybe he deserved it. Not a great guy where he's willing to get close to people and then just use them. And it's kind of did he do that to Perry? Not that Perry's a good guy, but was he just getting close to these people just in this very manipulative kind of I don't know if I would say abusive, but you're just it's weird to say taking advantage of a killer like that, but kind of taking advantage of him, you know what I mean, to get this article, to get this book out of him. He also wrote something called Music for Chameleons. Yes, Music for Chameleons, where he had one one story. I think it's just a series of little stories called Hand-Carved Coffins, and he also described this as a nonfiction account of an American crime, and apparently this is horseshit. And Capote completely made all this shit up, so that's just another example of Capote lying yet again. And yeah, just he doesn't have a good track record for me, so just for that, just for labeling In Cold Blood a nonfiction novel, immediately I don't like Capote because he's a liar, right? Because he's a liar for that. Just the sympathy for Perry and just trying to get these fucking people off, just trying to get these fucking animals off. I know this video is just kind of all over the place. I'm sorry about that. But I read In Cold Blood a little while ago, and then I saw the movie, and I thought, well, I should do something on it because I really don't like Capote. And yeah, so here's this, I guess. This is a little different from my channel. I kind of do media reviews and stuff of things I recommend to people. This is not a recommendation, but every once in a while I want to do a little rant video. So whatever. I should have another series of indie books I'm reviewing next week, and then that will probably be it for next week. I'll probably release that. That's gonna be it. Thanks for watching. Dr. Infinity out.